All right, y'all. I mentioned in the last video, a video about Douglas Wilson that a lot of people seem to have enjoyed, that I was likely to do a series of videos, 2, 3, 4 videos about Christchurch and Moscow. So this is the second in that. This video is going to be about women, the women of Christchurch. Oh, do pardon me. The third channel I want to do about the cultural experience, for lack of a better term, here in Moscow, that's being built by Christians here in Moscow, and specifically Christchurch type folks, CREC folks. And by I chose cultural experience because it's going to be about things like the arts, not necessarily like a family culture or the limited sense in which a lot of people can think of a church culture. So I'm excited about culture as it's meant when pomos use it. It's just being built up here in Moscow. So, good and serious visual arts, poetry, cuisine, etc. And I may do a video as well about small towns. So that's kind of what the things that have been on my mind, right? Today, it's the women of Christchurch. You may recall that about a year ago, my buddy Aaron Snell and I did a music video. The women of Christchurch don't wear any pants. There was a story on NBC, please pardon me, about a year ago. A little under the weather. And if I have more sips of this, then there are going to be more burps. And in this story, there were stories that came out on Vice, and I did a video about how Vice used some quotes of mine, just totally snatched them out of thin air. Like, here's a guy who is aware of Christian nationalism and doesn't like it. When my sarcastic tone should have been obvious even in those clips, but those videos were making fun of those folks. They didn't even bother to watch, right? That's how it goes. Anyway, a young woman in that story about Christian nationalism, made the claim that Christchurch women don't wear pants because, they're in a cult. I wanted to do something in response to that because it was so absurd on the face of it. My wife, I'm sure, was wearing pants at the moment I watched it. I wish my wife would wear skirts and dresses more often. She looks beautiful in them, but there she be, gallivanting about town in blue jeans. My daughters and the wives and daughters of my friends. So we just went house to house and sang a verse from this ditty we'd put together. And Aaron played a little accordion. And all of the women on a Sunday, too, all of the women whose day we interrupted to ask if they would feature in this music video were wearing pants at the moment we approached them, which I knew would happen, all but one. So she actually had to go put on some pants. She had been wearing a skirt. Gasp. One of the things that the slandered women of Christchurch did in response to this was someone initiated a survey. And I want to go through the results of this very informal survey with you. Now, it's important to note that this survey is not scientifically valuable, right? It's not truly random. So the group was chosen at random by the volunteers who ran the survey, they say, but it's also from a limited set. But it had to be that way, okay? The reason it had to be that way is that there are people who haunt anywhere that Christchurch share things publicly, and they bomb those things, right? They show up at meetings to disrupt them. They tell their friends that there's such an event so they can go protest. If you tried to run a survey they would, in fact, and they've done this sort of thing, right? That they try to ratio and all those things. So, unless some massive third-party thing had been conducted, there's no way to conduct an online survey that wasn't already sort of self-selecting. What this does provide, though, is excellent talking points, and excellent talking points for me to riff off of my own experience and anecdotally, okay? So I don't want anyone to think that I'm putting the survey out there as some kind of boom proof. This girl has got to learn that you can't cut a cherry tomato with a butter knife, and what is her mom doing? Oh, goodness gracious. Sorry, that image has been flashing around this whole time, and every time she tries to cut a cherry tomato with a butter knife, that's dangerous. Dull knives are dangerous. Give your kids sharp knives. Okay, so a survey of the women of Christchurch downtown and King's Cross. So Christchurch is pastored by Douglas Wilson as the head pastor. King's Cross, the notorious Toby Sumter is the head pastor. Christchurch downtown is still a mission of Christchurch. So at the end of 2023, a survey was conducted of adult women attending Christchurch downtown, and King's Cross in Moscow, Idaho. The purpose of the survey was to get a more accurate understanding of the women who are current church members. The survey was created and distributed by female volunteers in the church community, not by Christchurch leadership. Gasparoons already. Okay, so some crazy women slipped out of control and did this thing. Or either that or they're brainwashed, right? The survey group included 87 women over the age of 22 who have been in attendance for at least 3 consecutive years and are current attendees of Christchurch downtown, and King's Cross. The surveyed group was chosen at random by the volunteers. So there are 15 pages, including this one, to the survey, and I just want to go through it with you guys. Come along for the ride. All women surveyed were church members prior to the significant growth period that occurred after 2020. And this is why, the for at least 3 years thing was a part of the question. Okay, so members prior to the significant growth period. And it maybe gives you a little more accurate an idea of what the community is like, that the bigger community is being built upon. Also, these are the true blue ones, right? How long have you attended Christchurch? So nearly 37% from 3 to 10 years. This also shows, the remarkable growth. 30%, 11 to 20 years, 22%, 21 to 30 years, and then 11.5% more than 31 years. Okay. So the one thing this shows is the church and the church community has been growing for a long time now, right? To the alarm of some. The survey included women of post-college age, 22 years and older only. What is your age? And 16% were under 30. 30 to 40 or 31 to 40, 29%, 41 to 50, 30%, and the rest, a quarter, over 50. All right, so now you have a sort of baseline. Now we actually start to get into seeing a little bit of what these women are like. All right. So of those who responded, roughly 92% either are or have been married. Okay. So 87.5% are married. 7% are single. So this is age 22 all the way to the end. Just over 2% widowed. So I think that's one person. Let me think about it. 87%. Now I got a math. There are 87 people. Okay, so that's 2 people. Anyway, this is I feel like I'm violating something, but this is public. It's out there. And then divorced. And the women I know who are widowed and divorced, I mean, I shouldn't even have to say this out loud, but they fully participate in the community. They go to small groups and Bible studies, and they come to leadership events, and they have friends, etc. In fact, I just had the pleasure of going to a poetry reading hosted by a lovely widow. And I'm going to talk about that poetry event in a video to come. All right, what is your level of education? Nearly 60% of the women who responded hold an undergrad degree, with almost 15% holding a graduate degree from a credentialed institution. One of the things that gets tossed out there about New St. Andrews is that it's not credentialed. And I actually attended New St. Andrews when it wasn't credentialed. I think not credentialed is awesome. I think privately credentialed or credentialed by other weirdos is awesome, so that you can signal to the other weirdos. But whatever. New St. Andrews is actually accredited by broadly accepted institutions. Anyway, I don't know if that included New St. Andrews in this or what the question exactly was. Respondents pursued a wide range of areas of study at 30 different institutions, a mix of public, private, and international colleges and universities. My wife has her degree from the University of Florida. All right, so 60% have an undergraduate degree, and 20% have some college. All right, so apparently our women are remarkably well educated. That's just startling. I've never been around such a large group of well-educated people educated deeply and richly by the standards of the world. And I emphasize large because as a Presbyterian, like Presbyterians value education, but they also tend to congregate in small groups. As someone who grew up in academia, academics, even smaller groups, I've been around plenty of elitist groups. That's not a factor in this community, which is absolutely remarkable, especially given the degree of education that both sexes have. But the basic point of this slide is we let our girls go to school. All right. Compiling the responses from the previous chart, we see that close to 75% of the women who responded have completed a college degree, and over 94% attended at least some college. Come on. That speaks for itself. That's how we keep our women down. We keep Johnny down on the farm, and we keep our women at college. The women who responded are readers, with a majority reading more than 10 books a year. Failed to keep them ignorant, and more than a third averaging more than 20. How many books do you read on average in a year? Okay. The smallest group, 16%, read 31 plus books a year. That's just obnoxious. You can stop now. All right, you can see it for yourself. These women are readers. The respondents are also Bible readers, the vast majority of whom read the Bible every day, 85%. Okay, here's where it gets difficult. Okay, these women may be educated, they may be readers, and somehow their education and reading has made them unwhole, unsound, insane in the membrane. They have chosen to become breeders. Disgusting. How many kids do you have? 8% of these women have 0 kids. A third of them have 1 to 3. A whopping half of these reading women have 4 to 6 children. And 7% have 7 or more. Oh, man. Babes be breeding. The majority of respondents chose a Christian school for their kids' education. So over 60% Christian school. Over 20% mix of Christian school and homeschool, and then homeschool and public school. I believe that's a 0. Yeah, that's a 0. This is why they're becoming breeders. Oh, they're highly educated, but by suspect Christian institutions. See, this is why Vice gets to clip me, because I say things like that. All right. 15% homeschooled. I myself am an enormous fan of the old homeschooling and using schools as a part of homeschooling, whatever. Many of the respondents chose a different type of schooling than what they received. That's just a feature of of all of us. I mean, I was homeschooled. My parents kind of went through that transition halfway through. But, you know, people in our churches want to give their kids a Christian education. So they take their destiny in their hands. They make decisions for themselves. They do not go along with the madding crowd. And yes, the madding crowd here is the world. How were you educated growing up versus what your kid's education is? So the dark blue is how that mom was educated. All right, so Christian school. A quarter of them went to Christian school. Those women who went to Christian schools when they were children, 62.5% of them chose to send their kids to Christian school. 29% had a mix of methods. And, you know, that's what it would have. If I had responded to this, it would have been a mix of methods. And 22% of those women also chose to use a mix of schooling methods. So 12.8% homeschooled, but 15.3% homeschooled their own kids. Then finally, almost a third of these women went to public school, and none of them sent their kids to public school. You know, one of the things I always find striking in the bumper sticker culture that we have more broadly, but that we have here in Moscow as well, is this insistence from the bumper sticker crowd that we don't think for ourselves, or that our women don't think for ourselves. First of all, that really, it's very insulting to the women, because it sort of assumes that that the husbands are grabbing them by the pigtails and steering them like the motorcycles they are. These women are choosing not to have their kids go to government schools. They are choosing alternatives. They are thinking for themselves. And so this mocking crowd gets caught up in the rhetoric of describing these women as puppets, as muppets, and the rhetoric of describing these women as radical. Of course, what works best is to say that the men are radical and that the women are puppets. I've always wondered how that works in why is it in the feminist cosmos that men are so much better at brainwashing? Because when I read the literature of yore by men and women, when I meet men and women in different cultures, it sure seems to me like the women feel like they have an enormous impact on the behavior of men, perhaps even a controlling impact, right? Like, what's that line in My Big Fat Greek Wedding? The man is the head of the household, but the woman is the neck. But nope, the feminist rhetoric, for some reason, is that women were duped for centuries, and they're easy, apparently, to dupe. This, I think, is the most interesting to the haters. Most women reported doing some kind of work outside of homemaking while attending Christchurch, but the majority have done so part-time. That's because they're all having 5 babies, right? The type of work reported covered a wide range of activities, including teaching, nursing, design, property management, baking/catering, and athletic training. Pardon me. My wife teaches, and she sells her art. What's your work status outside of homemaking? Have you worked outside of homemaking while at Christ Church? So 17.5% said no. 82.5% have. And, this has a lot to do with the arc of having kids. If yes, what kind of business? Home-based, a quarter of them did home-based, 42% outside of the home, and 32% a mix of both. What hours? So almost a third of these women worked full time. And I guarantee you that this reflects the age of the women and the age of their kids. So I'll bet most of those full-time workers, 22, 23, 24, or from that crowd that's been here for 20 plus years, right? Kids be grown up. This question yielded nearly unanimous results. 86 out of 87 said no. This is going to be a stupid, unhelpful slide because this gets said all the time. And it gets said by our women. And the haters, including the women haters, ignore the women. They do not give a voice to our women because Christchurch women are dumb, regardless of how many books they've read. In fact, their books they read don't even count. Stupid Pilgrim's Progress and Dante. Does Christchurch teach that any given man has authority over any given woman? Does Christchurch teach that men are in charge of women? No. I'm actually shocked that one said yes. I'm mightily dismayed that one said yes. I almost feel like it was a misunderstanding of the question. Oh, man. So there you go. There was one answer that said that Christchurch teaches that any given man has authority over any given woman. Oh, enormous silliness. Oh, just the thought. Oh, goodness. Sorry. Just the thought of telling some woman to do something for me creeps me out. As for how the respondents, yeah, this is why I decided to do this, really. As for how the respondents dress, 100% wear pants. The majority also wear makeup, while head coverings during worship are fairly rare but not unheard of. And the head coverings, Pastor Wilson has actually taught against head coverings. And yet, people wear head coverings. So, what does that tell you about authority in the church and this being a cult? There are some people who want to do it. I disagree with it as well. It's from an interpretation of a certain passage in Scripture. How do you dress? Do you wear pants? Yes, 100%. 100% of the women wear pants. Even, apparently, the one who thinks Christchurch teaches this. Man, that still bothers me. Yeah, 100% of the women wear pants. 97.7% of the women wear makeup. And do you wear a head covering for worship? Okay, 96.6%. No. Of course, just by the way, if this were a church in South Africa or Nigeria or Vietnam, if it were a mosque in Mosul or Cairo, the haters wouldn't have anything to say about the head covering, right? It's us daring to wear head coverings. But nope, we don't be wearing head coverings. Okay, and yeah, that's it. That's it. And the background of the final slide is some denim because these women do be wearing blue jeans. So note, additional questions will be incorporated into a future, more comprehensive survey targeting a larger sample size. Yeah, this survey is not valid for making decisions or judgments on a scientific basis. But it is certainly valid for me and a lot of women were using the survey to do the same thing. Make the talking points. Tell their own anecdotal experiences. I mean, those numbers are so overwhelming. I laughed out loud when I heard that pants accusation because I see with my own naked eyeballs women in pants. Okay, so we can conclude that a majority of the Christchurch downtown, and King's Cross women surveyed are married, college-educated, readers of more than 10 books a year, pants wearers, past or current workers outside the home. Boom. So that's the typical Christchurch woman. Is my wife typical? Yeah. There you go, baby. You are a completely typical church lady. As for the rest of you, the peace of Christ be upon you. Woo! That is to prove that this is a very masculine channel, and any women who are here just by accident. And of course, you know this is a masculine channel because I'm drinking lime seltzer water, 0 calories.
What day is it today? Remind me.
It's Sunday, Mr. Pension.
Sunday. And what do we do on a Sunday morning, wherever we happen to be? We go to church, you bloody heathen!